Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're digging into your research stack today on, well, some pretty heavy topics. Global finance, the future of the dollar, and a lot of geopolitical tension.
That's right. We're trying to distill it all down for you.
Our mission today: can this BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus the newer members actually create a currency, or maybe just a payment system, that could seriously challenge the U.S. dollar?
And crucially, is the biggest threat to the dollar coming from these outside challengers or maybe from the U.S. itself?
Yeah, and the whole thing really blew up, didn't it, with that specific event a little while back, Saturday, November 30th, 2024, President-elect Trump's tweet.
Oh, yeah. The 100% tariff threat on BRICS countries if they didn't drop any plans for a new currency, that definitely got everyone's attention.
It fueled all that speculation, is
Yeah.
the dollar finished?
Exactly. But the sources we looked at suggest this interesting paradox. BRICS has the size, the population, the economic weight, and certainly the political desire to shake things up. But the real vulnerability for the dollar might actually be, well, self-inflicted wounds from the U.S. It's a fascinating tension.
Okay, so to unpack that, we really need to understand the players first and the fortress they're trying to scale. Let's start with BRICS itself.
Right. It's important, like you said earlier, this didn't start as some grand political alliance.
No, it was an acronym from Goldman Sachs, wasn't it, back in 2001?
Precisely. An economist coined BRIC, just B-R-I-C then, for Brazil, Russia, India, China. These were the fast-growing economies supposedly set to dominate the century, purely an investment idea.
South Africa joined later, 2010, making it BRICS.
Yep. But the political side did start spooling up earlier. Putin got ministers together in 2006, and Russia hosted the first actual summit in 2009.
And now, fast forward to 2024, it's exploded into BRICS Plus.
Yeah.
Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, the UAE are in.
Which makes the numbers pretty staggering. You're looking at roughly 45% of the world's population.
45%, huge.
And maybe 35% of global GDP, especially if you measure it in purchasing power parity terms, PPP.
Right? Which kind of reflects their actual domestic economic muscle. It shows their collective size is definitely a counterweight to the G7 Western powers.
For sure. Even though it still functions mostly as, a discussion forum rather than a tight-knit bloc.
But the glue holding these really diverse countries together seems to be this shared frustration, a deep frustration with the U.S. dollar just dominating everything.
That's the core grievance. The dollar isn't just America's money, it's the world's main foreign exchange reserve. Central banks everywhere hold on to dollars.
Why? Because they're seen as safe, stable, backed by the U.S. economy and financial system. Predictable, mostly.
And this status gives the U.S. these, well, almost unbelievable advantages. There are really four big ones.
Okay.
First, huge global demand for dollar assets, especially U.S. government debt, U.S. treasuries. They basically form the bedrock of the whole global financial system.
Which means the U.S. government can borrow money way more cheaply than anyone else?
Exactly. Second, international trade runs on dollars. Think about major commodities, oil being the big one, all priced in dollars.
Which kind of insulates the U.S. when it imports stuff. Though, as President Trump often pointed out, maybe it hurts U.S. manufacturing because it makes imports cheaper.
That's the argument, yeah. But the third and fourth points are where it really bites for the BRICS nations.
Okay.
Third is just the immense financial influence the U.S. wields. And fourth, and this is the kicker, this dominance lets the U.S. impose financial sanctions all by itself. Just cut countries off from the global market.
And that ability to just flip the switch,
Yeah.
that's what's driving BRICS, right?
Right.
They see what happened to Russia, to Iran, with heavy sanctions.
They see it as the weaponization of finance. That term comes up again and again in the sources.
It's a powerful analogy. Like, the U.S. owns the only global power grid.
Right. And if you step out of line, they can just cut your power, freeze your assets, block your trade. That fear, that sting, is why they're so motivated to build their own sort of parallel grid that the U.S. can't touch.
Okay, but wanting to build it and actually being able to build it are two different things. This brings us to the sheer difficulty of knocking a reserve currency off its perch.
It's incredibly hard, maybe historically unprecedented without, utter global chaos.
Why? What's the main barrier?
It boils down to something called the network effect. A currency works because everyone accepts it. And why do they accept it? Because they know everyone else accepts it.
So you can actually use it anywhere.
Precisely. That web of trust, the infrastructure, the plumbing, it's built over decades, generations even. It connects every bank, every trade route. You can't just launch a new currency and expect that entire network to just switch overnight. It doesn't work like that.
And history doesn't offer much encouragement for BRICS here, does it? People have been predicting the dollar's doom since, what, the 70s, when Nixon took it off gold?
Constantly. Yet here we are. I mean, its share of global reserves might have dipped a tiny bit, but it still utterly dominates transactions, global debt issuance outside the U.S.
The only real historical example is the British pound sterling giving way to the dollar.
Right. But think about what it took for that to happen. It wasn't just, oh, Britain ran a trade deficit for a few years.
No, it was.
It required 2 world wars, catastrophic, system-shattering events, and Britain ending up massively, cripplingly indebted to the United States. Global calamity, not just a group of countries deciding they wanted a change.
So, BRICS needs something much, much bigger than just political will and a large combined GDP. They lack that single unified structure and maybe most importantly, that deep ingrained global trust.
And when you look closely at the BRICS members themselves, the internal cracks and contradictions become really clear.
Like with China's currency, the yuan, the CNY. Theoretically, it's the only one with the economic muscle, right? Second biggest economy in the world.
It's the only plausible contender on paper. But the yuan has these huge structural problems for global investors.
The main one being capital controls.
Exactly. The Chinese government tightly controls money flowing in and out. If you're an international investor, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
You worry your money could get trapped or restricted whenever Beijing decides.
Which is the opposite of what you need for a global reserve currency. You need openness, freedom of movement, predictability.
Things China doesn't offer right now. And here's another twist the sources brought up. Maybe China doesn't even want the yuan to be the top global reserve currency.
Really? Why not? Isn't that the goal for a rising power? More influence?
You'd think so. But having a truly globalized, freely floating currency would make it much harder for Beijing to manage the yuan's value.
Ah, because they like to devalue it sometimes to keep exports cheap.
Precisely. That's a crucial economic lever for them. Giving that up for a global reserve status, they might prioritize control over global prestige, at least for now.
And we've seen them pull back, haven't we? Like with the Belt and Road Initiative loans. They tried to push the yuan.
Yeah, in the late 2010s, a lot of those loans were meant to spread the yuan's use, but many got converted back into dollars because the countries receiving the loans found holding yuan too risky or impractical.
Okay, so if the yuan isn't ready, what about the other ideas? Like a joint BRICS currency.
Still very vague, just concepts, really. Talk about a basket of BRICS currencies, maybe linking it to gold or other commodities, but there's no concrete plan, no unified push.
What about that BRICS bridge thing Putin was pushing in 2024? The SWIFT alternative.
Yeah, an attempt to create their own interbank messaging system to bypass SWIFT and avoid U.S. sanctions.
How'd that go down?
Lukewarm response, honestly. India, for instance, was reportedly quite hesitant. They didn't want to provoke the U.S. unnecessarily by joining a Russia-led system aimed squarely at undermining U.S. sanctions power. And besides, there are already other systems, like Embridge, run by the neutral bank for international settlements in Switzerland. It kind of does the same thing without being so politically charged. Why reinvent the wheel, especially a politically risky one?
It really points to the divisions within the group, doesn't it? Especially now with the expansion.
Absolutely. India, Brazil, South Africa, their urgency to ditch the dollar just isn't the same as, say, heavily sanctioned Russia or Iran. That makes unified action on something as massive as challenging the dollar almost impossible.
Okay, so BRICS seems to lack the unity, the infrastructure, the trust, basically the ability to build a credible alternative right now. The fortress walls are holding from the outside.
Which brings us back to that paradox we mentioned at the start. If the dollar can't easily be breached from the outside, where's the real danger?
And the sources seem to converge on this surprising idea. The biggest threat might be the United States itself, actions taken by the U.S. government.
This is so important because the dollar's strength isn't just economic size, it's fundamentally about trust and reliability, and certain U.S. actions seem to be chipping away at that trust.
Like what, specifically?
Well, first, think about proposals like those 100% tariffs. That kind of move risks isolating the U.S. economically. It pushes other countries, even allies, to think harder about diversifying away from U.S. supply chains and, by extension, dollar dependence, even if the alternatives aren't great yet.
Okay, what else?
Second, the constant escalating use of financial sanctions. Yes, they hurt rivals in the short term, but the more the U.S. uses the dollar system as a weapon.
The more incentive everyone else has to find a way out. It makes even previously neutral countries start planning for a just-in-cases scenario.
Exactly. Third, and this could be the most damaging, any move that looks like politicizing the Federal Reserve.
Undermining its independence.
Right. The world trusts the dollar, in large part because the Fed is seen as independent, technocratic, managing monetary policy based on economics, not politics. If global markets suspect the Fed might just print money or slash rates to help a political party,
That core trust evaporates.
yeah,
Instantly.
instantly. And finally, you just can't ignore the sheer scale of U.S. federal debt. Many economists see current levels as unsustainable long-term. That raises fundamental questions about the future reliability, the future value of dollar assets.
Even things like provocative tweets demanding everyone use the dollar, they can backfire.
Totally. It makes the dollar seem less like a stable, neutral utility and more like a tool subject to unpredictable political whims. Less safe.
So if the world does start seriously doubting the dollar's safety, its long-term reliability, that's when its reserve status could really start to wobble.
Without BRICS needing to build anything perfect, the U.S. could, essentially, push the world away, doing the hard work for its rivals.
It really lays out the stakes. If the U.S. loses that reserve status, it means much higher borrowing costs, a weaker currency impacting imports, less global influence, huge changes.
And for BRICS, achieving that goal might mean more autonomy, sure, but probably short-term chaos too, given there's no smooth alternative ready to take over. It would disrupt everything.
So summing up, BRICS has that massive population share, that significant chunk of GDP, real weight.
But it's still not enough, not yet, to overcome the inertia, the network effects, the decades of trust built into the dollar system. History suggests you need truly seismic shifts like world wars to dislodge a top currency.
Replacing the dollar isn't just about having a big economy. It's about building an entire global financial architecture, trusted, stable, open, predictable.
A monumental undertaking. And the BRICS group, with all its internal differences, seems far from having a blueprint, let alone laying the foundations.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with this final thought to chew on. If we accept that the world isn't currently facing that kind of WWII-level crisis needed for a natural currency shift,
Right. If BRICS can't force it from the outside,
then what specific non-military, non-financial domestic policy actions would the United States itself have to take? What internal decisions or political moves could truly trigger that mass erosion of global trust needed to actually unseat the dollar?
that question, maybe more than anything BRICS does, likely holds the key.